You see the little live button in the orange flag?
It's out of the street.
Yep, when you're swimming.
All right.
I just need to hit the backup device. And it's good. We're good to go. Commissioners, if you can remember to turn on your microphones if they're not already on, please.
Get you back up. Okay. Okay.
Set.
Go ahead and call to order the August 2023 Victorian Village Commission hearing. Our next business meeting will be Wednesday, August 30th, 2023 at 12 noon at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, which is this room. Our next hearing date will be Wednesday, September 13th, 2023 at 4 p.m. 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204. Want to swear in staff?
Kimberly Bernard Sheehy?
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to introduce the commissioners present.
Robert Dotson, Pete Schuler,
Reed Sprite.
Tim Skinner.
Sean Conyers. All right, any need for overview of hearing format?
I don't believe so, but if there is, we'll address it as it comes up.
Awesome, okay. Today we do have a public forum, so I'll turn it over to you, Kimberly.
Yes, so this public forum is for the art update. If Caitlin wants to come up and present real quick.
Thank you so much for bumping me up to the top. Yes, I have our electrical boxes, that I just gave you as an FYI. I have my Columbus Art Commission meeting next week where they'll hopefully do their final approvals, but I just wanted to make sure there was no issues or problems with any of those, designs submitted.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Truly
Thank you.
appreciate it. That's
Columbus Art Commission likes to hear that you guys are on board too,
I
so.
understand.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, so approval of staff approvals. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve staff approvals.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Go ahead, Kimberly.
All right, please start on page 6 of the agenda if you'd like to follow along with 910 Neal Avenue, 914 Neal Avenue, 682 Neal Avenue, 1112 Highland Street, 1162 Harrison Avenue, 319 West 3rd Avenue, 870 to 876 Dennison Avenue.
All right, we'll move on to minutes from the July 12th hearing. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve July minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this motion passed. All right. Kimberly, go ahead and turn it over to you for staff.
Referred.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So we will start with application number 1, which is 916 Neal Avenue. If the applicant or owner would like to come up while I'm reading the staff report, they're free to do so. So this application is to remove the existing non-historic door and transoms, the full frame removal, replaced with the Marvin Ultimate and swing French door assembly. The new transom would have the wider styles. All units would be stationary as operable, and the paint color would be that Sierra white exterior with winterberry transoms to match the existing paint colors, and the trim would be replaced like for like. Commissioners at the business meeting questioned if a Juliet balcony was needed since there are no steps or porch and there's that bit of a drop. They also wanted to confirm of how the door would be fixed and placed. The applicant confirmed the door would be installed with the nailing pin into the jamb of the rough opening. Staff does recommend approval of the application as submitted with any clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of the certificate. Basis of staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, these standards for alteration.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name and get you sworn in, sir?
Yeah, Dan Gessler.
Perfect. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
So I don't know
If
what,
there's anything to add or,
nothing to add. These doors are completely stationary, so there's no access. They're not gonna open. So I don't know if there's a need for the balcony. They will be installed nail fin and they can go through the jams, but the door will not move.
thank you.
I'm recusing myself from this
Okay.
application.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it looks like that on the cut sheet that there's no hardware on these as well. Is that correct? Okay, great.
Any other thoughts? You're close. I just,
Very close.
it's, yeah, understandable. Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. All right, so, is there a motion?
Motion to approve application BV 2308007 916 Neil Ave as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all? Go to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Great. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
All right, application number 2 is 1129 High Street. This application is to install 2 new blade signs for 2 separate businesses to operate in the space. Sign 1 will measure approximately 18 inches by 12 inches, while the second sign will measure approximately 12 inches by 10 inches. These will be metal signs with no illumination, and the exterior wood elements will be painted the bare whipped cream. Commissioners at the business meeting were supportive of the proposed design, but wanted HBO staff to confirm the square footage. They also wanted clarification on why there would be 2 signs for the space. The combined signage would be approximately 3 square feet with the dimensions provided. Commissioners should discuss if this condition is appropriate throughout the short north and if they would be okay with multiple signs being done along the stretch in a similar fashion. Staff recommends approval of the application as submitted with any and all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. Basis for staff recommendation are the short north design guidelines on signage, including the general guidelines and the projecting or blade sign guidelines.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you guys state your name and get you sworn in?
Clarice Steiner. Lauren Branch.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Anything to add to staff's observations and thoughts on the application?
Just to clarify, the signs are separate because the Little Gay Bookstore will be a nonprofit and the Queer Gates will be for profit. So we just want to keep everything as separate as possible.
Gotcha. Understandable. Anything else at all? Okay.
How come we?
Okay, awesome. Any thoughts, concerns? Square footage seems appropriate from that standpoint.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think for the dual sign issue that you raised, I think as long as the square footage, right, and is within the requirements, and I guess the problem some people might have with hanging signs is you get a little too close, so as long as the height restriction is met, as well as the square footage, I don't see a problem. It's actually in some ways better than having 2 signs that are right next to each other and for blades, so, which is my piece.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well put. So, all right, is there a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve VV 230808, 1129 North High Street as submitted.
Is there a second? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and reasons for approval were previously given by Commissioner Dotson.
That's correct.
Just noting that for the record,
Yes.
yes, everything kind of has to stay in one space, we have it.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you so much.
All right, so application number 3 is 795 Park Street. If the applicant's here, come on up. This application is there in response to a code violation. It's for landscaping to install new 12-foot by 13-foot, 18-inch paver patio with 20 by 20-inch pavers. Plant 3 new horn beams at the west of the property. Install new 6-inch by 6-foot high posts and reinstall the existing vertical dog-eared cedar plank panels to match the existing fence on the west and north sides of the property. as well as an exterior building modification to replace the northwest door, repair deck boards and railing spindles as needed and to match in like kind, and replace the deck skirting to be horizontal vertical lattice instead of diagonal. Commissioners at the business meeting wanted to confirm no changes, repairs were needed to the existing deck. The applicant did confirm that a few deck boards and rails would need repaired or replaced during the business meeting. Commissioners encouraged the applicant to fix the deck skirting, stating a vertical lattice would be more appropriate. The door that is being replaced is historic, and HBO staff recommends retaining and repair. These types of doors are sporadically seen as side entry doors throughout the Victorian Village and are difficult to replace in like kind. The applicant confirmed repairs to the deck, and they'd like to add the deck skirting to the current application per the commission's request. The commissioners made several comments regarding their concern about the rear deck at the business meeting. Just a reminder, the deck's not part of this application. Though per the applicant, the repairs to the deck boards, railing, and updating the deck skirting have been added. If there's any additional maintenance that should be needed, that should be submitted as a separate application. So staff does recommend approval of the application with conditions that the entry door be made repaired and the product information regarding the deck skirting is submitted to HBO staff prior to issuance of the certificate, which it has already been done and it's included in materials. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, new standards for alteration.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name, sir, and get you sworn in?
Yes, Gene McHugh.
Okay. Did you really tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead and turn it over to you.
Did I hear correctly that it's the commission's request that I maintain and repair the entry door?
So I think just kind of staff, I think that's what staff is
Yes.
suggesting is that that their recommendation is to maintain and retain the door and just repair it. That is correct.
Okay. I guess the door was a 1940s modification or addition where the bay window was, cut to add that door in. And if you look at the windows on the house with the kind of the three divided lights on the top, I was hoping to replace the door with something a little more compatible versus the horizontal mullions on the 1940s door. So I can leave that door, but I'd prefer to change it out given some of the damage that's occurred recently.
Okay, understandable. Is there a possibility of being able to speak to a couple of other items? Obviously the fence and the landscaping together.
Mhm.
And then, the suggestion about the skirting on the deck. Would you ever speak about those two?
For the landscaping, we're proposing it per the drawing to add in a new concrete paver patio to the south of the deck. And it would be new sod to the west of the yard. And then the fence would be replaced to match the existing north and west sides as well. So to match the fence, there's the 3 new horn beams, and then the paver patio is a new proposal just to add some additional amenity space to the backyard.
In addition to the patio, it appears that there's a walkway that heads away from the deck. Is that existing or is that?
No, there's a couple of kind of sample tiles, pavers down there off the walk in the photo, but it is not existing currently.
And are those, it shows up as might look like it's a different material. Is it also the pavers?
It is the paver that would connect the existing concrete walkway to the new paver patio to the south.
Okay, so maybe what I'm seeing is the concrete walkway that heads to the stair.
This stair comes down currently to the existing concrete walkway
Okay,
that goes out to Hubbard Avenue.
so that's existing up to the stair and then around the corner.
Right.
Okay.
The gridded area shown on the drawing would be the proposed new paver area.
Okay, great, thank you.
Very helpful. Would you be able to speak to us just a little bit about the deck? any concerns with the skirting that's been suggested in terms of the vertical skirting?
The skirting was brought up at the business meeting, wasn't part of this submission, but, you know, I took the constructive comment there and have submitted a specification on a new vertical skirting as part of the addition to the submission.
Perfect. All right. Is there anything else, sir, that we're missing out of those kind of three components that you want to add before I kind of turn it back over to the commission for additional comments?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. That's perfect. All right, team. So door, I think that we heard the door. I would try to understand a little bit more about the 1940s condition now that they've offered that with staff. I would like to try to touch base with Kimberly and understand that a little bit. Let's switch to fence and landscape. Any thoughts or concerns with the fence and the landscape that's being proposed in the plan?
No.
It's pretty straightforward.
Understandable.
Yeah, I don't have a big difference.
Okay, so that's pretty easy. Deck skirting, that seems like that's pretty simple. It's more of a suggestion recommendation. But obviously like in kind for any additional maintenance and that'll be submitted accordingly. So let's go back to kind of the door. Kimberly, with the understanding of the 1940s, and can you just kind of talk through that a little bit just to make sure that.
So some of it is I did staff report before the additional photos
Okay,
were submitted. So, and I'm now second guessing myself.
That's
There
fair.
was a window and door application we saw a number of months ago that I want to say had similar doors on the side, but the Historic Preservation Office does want to maintain and repair historic materials,
Mhm.
especially older growth wood. Now, if the commission finds that this isn't a contributing feature, staff would recommend a door more in line with what's in the Victorian Village guidelines.
understandable. Gotcha. Okay. So two options. One, obviously is, maintaining a little bit of consistency of what was being talked about in terms of repair of existing. Or if there's opportunities for a replacement, then it will be more in kind with those options that have been provided in prior discussions and maybe not necessarily this other option with the three, kind of lights that's being shown. Any thoughts or to try to help support where we need to go?
So the proposed door, that doesn't fit within the guidelines though, right? Or does it?
That's what it seemed like it doesn't.
It doesn't, okay, that's what I read.
I think the applicants was looking at the three
Right.
light match, the proportion of the light with the window condition, with that top sash. But it wouldn't be necessarily in kind of things that would be part of what's approved.
Okay.
So it seems like maybe right now it's hard to say what, I mean, I guess what we could say, do we feel as though that is a contributing feature? I think that's the number one thing. And then if we don't feel like it's a contributing feature, then that would open up the application for opportunities to work with Kimberly and staff to on a solution that would be appropriate for the replacement.
And if it is a contributing feature, do we need more documentation of existing damage or deterioration?
That's understandable.
But as Sean said, we should probably start with, does the commission feel that this door is a contributing feature?
With this door replacement, is there a possibility of being able to address the transom condition?
Yeah, there could be a possibility. In the 40s, the home was divided up into 4 one-bedrooms. They dropped the ceilings in the units and actually dropped the lintels and replaced windows at that point. And, that opaque transom was incorporated as part of the door. It's a possibility. I don't know what the Victorian Village standards are on a transom condition.
So that's perfect. Thank you, sir. Very helpful. So in the interior, if the interior conditions now wouldn't provide a hardship of that transom coming back home.
It just clears the ceiling on the inside.
Okay. So, team, I'm just kind of thinking about, with the suggested modification that it would be beneficial to be able to get the transom back.
Great.
So I think that's more of a concern in terms of the overall contribution of that particular door. With the work, it seems like that would be helpful for us and for the property.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that that's the advantage to replacing it. I mean, I think obviously if you do that, then the door that's submitted is not appropriate, the transom. So then you go with more of the standard setup. And that said, I mean, given the symmetry with the windows, I understand where he's coming from in terms of what has been supplied. So
Yeah.
I could be persuaded.
Understand.
Can I ask a clarification if only an opaque door is permitted for design standards for entry doors?
No, I'll turn that one over to Kimberly, but there are a lot of glass options. There are a few glass options.
Yeah.
There.
Well, there's here. I have the guidelines, which have 3 out of the 4 options, because the commission will also entertain a half-light door in some instances, which I don't know if that's an option here. So you've got the couple solid ones and the 3/4 light.
Yeah.
Those are all here.
So there's a screen.
Yeah, I guess I had seen that exhibit. Kimberly had shared that with me previously. I was just a little concerned that the 3/4 light might not provide a comfort, psychological comfort of maybe security. Hence, it was less glass with the mullions, but I just want to, I think originally, since it was a bay window and given natural light, I was hoping to incorporate or retain some lights in that door, and just wanted to see, and I'm flexible on what the design might be. I just want to get a little bit of sense from the commission here, what might be acceptable in terms of retaining some type of lights to the door.
Understandable. That's understandable.
Can you confirm, it appears that there's a screen door?
There is a screen
Is
door.
that remaining as is?
It would. It's a black, black framed to kind of match some of the other black wrought iron trim on the house. It does have the half screen above, retractable screen, and the storm doors.
Because that certainly affects what we're looking at here.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, I just, for clarification, I just wanted to say that I guess I'm in favor of preserving the original door, just given the minimal damage.
Okay.
And it's kind of historic value to the house, even though I understand the aesthetics of the horizontal on the door and the vertical on the window. It's not the same, but I don't see enough for a replacement, but I just wanted to.
And is that just to retain what's existing?
Yes.
Repair. It will be just to repair the door itself.
It does have an acrylic light in it that came when we bought the house. Maybe I didn't clarify that it was a little scratched. Maybe it isn't shown as much, but that was another element that was changing to a window with glass lights.
So I guess, would you, the recommendation, and I was kind of searching for a little bit more from that perspective, right? But the recommendation from staff is the repair, right? So understanding that, would you have any concerns with going through a repair? Okay. You feel as though the door can be repaired?
Of course, that everything can be repaired.
I just wanted to be sure.
We can, if that's what the commission would like, I can repair it.
Okay. So again, I don't want to stretch you guys. I'm just trying to.
Yep.
There's options here on the table.
I guess the question I would just like to make sure we answer, is it a contributing feature, right? And that's gonna have to answer the next question.
That's correct. I guess I was on the fence a little bit because of the 1940s replacement and the transom condition. That's why I was trying to understand if it was, in fact, the composition, I'm gonna say, is contributing versus the actual element. That's where I was straddling a little bit. And so, um, so I don't want to say work. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the element was changed, then maybe we could get the composition to be back more in kind. But
I think the challenge here
don't
is
want to
though,
sacrifice something.
yeah, I think the challenge is that this, I mean, this is where this door is in the bay window. I mean, this is not
Yeah.
where a door would be,
Yeah.
right? So trying to upgrade it to what the standards are for where a door would be, it doesn't seem quite right. Right, so, I think I could, I'm, sticking with the devil you got and with what you know, and I think that there might be something to that given the age of this, and that, it's about as good as you're gonna get in that kind of setup,
I
right?
understand.
Without making it look weirder.
Fair. Fair.
So the standards for alteration also mention in number 4, the changes which have taken place over the course of time are evidence of the property's history and environment.
Makes sense.
These changes may have acquired significance in their own right, and if so, the significance should be respected.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to.
And
I appreciate that justification, and I think it makes sense that this is a unique, non-historical situation that has now become historical, right? So I think that's enough reason to concur with staff recommendation here.
it's a great dialogue. This is perfect. All right.
Well,
So,
maybe as a final question on that one,
yes.
what if I were to replace the door with a door to match that existing one, painted wood? Would that be acceptable?
I think we're both looking at each other because I'm gonna default to the other.
I guess I'm weighing now how much time and effort and cost to repair that one versus buying a new one to match that one, which I'd be willing to do.
So my typical answer is to retain and repair, and if the damage and deterioration is bad enough, to replace in like kind.
We have similar conditions on windows, and I think that the default has been repair, and that's been the primary approach, is the repair, to help retain. So I think the door, even though it would be an opportunity of being able to match it, we still would kind of default to trying to repair.
Okay.
So, all right, so we have the 3 items. So repair of the door, no concern there, of the existing door and retain it in its current form. The fence and landscaping, no concern. And then the deck, skirting, no concern. Any other maintenance, items will be
The
returned back to.
the deck boards and spindles
So
kind of happen
minor,
as well, so.
So there was some minor like in kind
Mhm.
changes on the deck boards and the spindles that are in repair or in need of repair. So is there a motion?
Or multiple motions.
Multiple motions if we want to just put these up?
Do we need to?
I'm hopeful that we don't need I'm hopeful that we don't.
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, let's do it.
I'll try it. Motion for.
Hold up. Yes.
Yes, and are we confirming that the applicant's okay modifying their application to repair the door?
It's,
Yes.
seems like it's in the ones. I'm
Because
sorry.
I want that, I want to make sure we have that on the record. Anytime we're doing any
Yeah, that's
changes,
perfect.
just in case.
We appreciate it.
So sorry to cut you off, but go ahead, Kurt.
Great.
Motion for VV 23 08 009, 795 Park Street as submitted with the condition of the door is repaired. Existing door is repaired. The deck lattice is repaired or reinstalled per submitted. And any additional deck improvements are like in kind. Cover what needed.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion at all? Kimberly, you need anything else?
I don't believe so. I just want to clarify with the deck, the repair are in like kind. Is that just to the flooring and the spindles, or does that include additional items?
I think it's the flooring and the spindles,
Okay,
and I think the skirting itself was the vertical skirting,
yes.
as has been clarified. So
Replace.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, no problem. All right, all vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion pass. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
in. Really appreciate it. Excellent.
All right.
Guys, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Application number 4, which is 910 Dennison Avenue. This application is to add a fire escape stair to the east elevation of the building, replace a window on the second and third floor to allow for a door on each floor, and that the door on the third floor will be out on the roof. Commissioners at the business meeting asked how the egress coverage was being addressed. They noted the fire escape was a large design change and that having three-dimensional views like those they previously reviewed would be helpful. Per the commission's request, HPO staff has included the most recent COAs for the updated design and the originally approved design. The commission should discuss if they view the proposed fire escape and the window and door alterations as appropriate for the new additions. They should also discuss if they view the proposed fire escape as a temporary, easily removable alteration. There is precedent for supplying additional access to support life safety throughout Victorian Village. The Yukon building is of similar height and it has 2 fire escapes approved on the north and south elevations, which was done in July of 2007. And the COA has been included in the materials for that as well. And if we need to, we can always jump to Google Street View too. Staff recommends continuation of the application to allow for the applicant to explore the egress coverage if required. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, these standards for alteration, as well as City Code 3116.12, these standards of new construction.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you guys state your name and get you sworn in?
Heidi Bolyard, Simplified Living Architecture.
Michael Yankelevich, on behalf of Mishkat LLC, the owner.
Perfect. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to you guys.
So yeah, we were working with the building department to try to get around doing the emergency fire escape, but the only other way to do it was to sprinkle the entire building, and it's cost prohibitive. So that's why we added it, and there's parking on the other 3 sides of the building, so the only option for adding this fire escape is on the east side, and the only thing on the east side is it's just side yard up to a fence there. So it is in the pictures that we had sent. Do you have those sample pictures? Oh, yeah, those are awesome. So we just included like what some different emergency stair examples, just so that you could see what we were looking at. But the one that's actually gray is the manufacturer that would be used, and that would be powder coated so that it could be painted to match the hardy brown that's being used on the new addition. Just when it's a darker color, it just kind of fades into the structure. It's also set back from the south face of the building. Just so, and then there's already a large tree there that will remain. So from First Avenue, it'll be completely invisible.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Anything else before we? Okay. All right, team, just open up to any comments or thoughts.
And I apologize if I missed it. Was there any commentary with the comment about the covering code requirement for covering the egress?
Because it's open, like it has open treads, it doesn't get into zoning. Or for the lot coverage.
No, for the egress code of requirement of the stairs to be covered as an egress.
With a roof.
Oh, a roof?
Yeah.
No.
That's been confirmed that that's not required. And we asked that, and that was part of the commentary from staff, and that came up in our dialogue
Okay.
during the business meeting, is that at least some of our.
That was
some of
not
the
our
architectural
understanding of it, we just thought you meant zoning
No,
coverage.
just the
No.
the building code egress standards and please the architects on the committee.
Yeah.
Back me up here, but just if that is required, because that definitely has an impact on the elevation we're looking at. If
Right, yeah.
you come back, you
No, I agree.
say, yeah, this is, we look at the classic examples where that was not required at that point in time, and now it is.
Right, we were working with a code consultant and, yeah, who used to be a plans examiner, and he didn't say anything about it needing to be covered.
Okay.
So we thought that we had, yeah, when we had saw your note in the comments from a couple weeks ago, that's not what we understood that
Okay.
note as. We thought that it meant actually lot coverage.
Okay.
And I will add, in looking at some of the fire escapes around Victorian, most of the ones I've seen have been open.
Okay.
So the one on the Yukon building, both sides, I believe are open. This
Yeah.
is the south one.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm trying to understand is those are grandfathered in historic conditions versus a new building.
That was, the ones on the Yukon aren't historic, those were
Okay, those
approved.
are, okay.
So that was 2007. So, and I'm also assuming that part of the review, you're working with the kind of like all-inclusive team down in building and zoning, that
Yes.
fire is also looking at this. And
Mhm.
so you've got
Yes.
multiple eyes on it at this point.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
What's shown is more of a conceptual, kind of understanding. So is the structure gonna be like it's shown in the elevation? I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can go back to the sample picture, so, right there, the gray structure,
That's the plan, right? Bottom,
yeah.
right?
the one that's the sample from, or the example from the manufacturer.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's what it's based on, though there will, because of the height of it, there are some diagonal bracing.
Oh, there are some diagonal bracing, so
Yeah,
diagonal
like we
bracing.
have drawn in ours.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else, team? Any other concerns with the approach, or any additional clarity that's needed?
Is the double top rail required?
No, it's just, that's what, I thought it looked, if it is seen at all, it looks a little more residential for the residential neighborhood than what some of the other manufacturers.
Doesn't bother me on the elevation, but when I see the photo example, it makes it just adds another layer to it that I think you kind of want this to go away and blend in, and simplification in my mind seems to be better.
I would agree with you. I mean, I just gotta think about the one that's on the Yukon. I mean, there is a certain simplicity to it, so. So, no. Yeah, I would, must get better off.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the examples of kind of the, again, the historic and new examples of this being a feature of Victorian area commercial buildings. So with that being said, if the roof is not required, it doesn't bother me. I think it can be a contributing feature, but I would urge for simplification of
Of the room.
So I do want to mention the supports, because they do, they're just yelling at me. And I'm looking at the other pictures of historic fire escapes, right, and they don't have supports, the support by the building. And I know that that's probably because the nature of when they were putting in and what load they actually should be able to support, but don't. But I think it's just putting me off a little bit. It's looking like the fire escapes we see that have been tacked on over the years that like, you just don't want to see again, right, on the residential buildings. I don't know if there's a way around not having those supports, but I think that would, if it could be supported by the building itself.
well, back to the Yukon example, if you look at it, there are posts.
Are there on that
There's a
one?
cantilever.
There are, yeah.
But
They're right up against it.
additive, not that
Let me look
outboard.
at that one, okay.
Yeah, so I would agree if that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's better, I would say, from what I saw in that.
I think the benefit to that is it is between the building and fence, so it's not really gonna be seen by anybody.
I mean, that is fair.
Yeah, and that's there's landscaping there.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, so, just trying to figure out if we're missing anything, Kimberly.
I can't think of anything.
Do you think that we've addressed your concerns that was thinking about a continuation?
I think you've addressed my concerns.
Okay.
I mean, the continuation was mainly just based on what the feedback was at the business meeting. And,
Yeah.
you know, if the commission's okay with that, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I mean, if anything else does pop up, there's a good chance we're gonna have to go through this process over
Yeah.
again.
Understandable.
If there's any design changes.
Understandable.
Hopefully there won't be, because you've been back a couple of times, and as much as we like seeing you, we know you wanna move your project forward too.
Okay.
But yeah, too, if you wanted us to simplify the railing, we also have no problem with that as well.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I get from you on that, is that something
Yes.
that others feel?
I would agree.
I'm with you.
Okay. All right.
Anything about lighting to talk about?
I don't know,
Is that included
I
here?
couldn't remember that lighting was included. I don't know why that cut sheet got in there.
Well, okay, so there is no, well, there's a cut sheet for lighting.
I know, I do see it now. I didn't know, so thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we were just trying to go with something that was darker, so it blended into the building.
And that is a required egress. Not lighting.
Yes,
Where do those,
there's
are those on the?
one outside of each of the doors.
It's not on the plans.
So above the door?
Yes. It's actually, yeah, didn't get on the elevations, but it would be centered above the door,
Center.
So two of them centered above each door.
or one centered above each of the two doors.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, team? Okay, just kind of thinking about the post, and I know we just talked through that a little bit. I remember this building being the existing building, and there's some additions, that, you know, I mean, I think a portion of it is, there's an addition. If we could somehow, just make mention, something about, the support of that. That the posts for the egress, are going down the grade because of some of the existing conditions. Somehow placing that in the motion, I think would be helpful, because I think, and the condition of where the property is situated. So then that way it doesn't open us up for other
Yes.
opportunities in the future. So,
It's recognition
Yeah,
that that's not an
recognition.
ideal scenario,
that's correct.
but it's a site-specific
That's correct.
condition. Okay.
Much better put.
Yeah.
So, okay. Is there a motion?
Motion for VV 23 08 010 Dennison Avenue as submitted with the condition that, well, one, understanding that covering is not required per code. If it does come back into play, that this is brought back forward, and that the railing is simplified, more similar to the Yukon building example shown. Recognition by the commission that the supports are maybe not as historic, but required in this case due to the existing building conditions, and that they are at such location on the site that will be partially screened and inappropriate. Awesome.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Thanks, Pete. Any further discussion, team? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, to keep adding.
No, that's,
The lights were brought up, are we okay? with that
Oh.
as well?
yes, thank you
Sorry,
so
thank
much. Thank you.
Then I would add the caveat that they need to be added to the.
Yeah, for the minutes.
Yes, thank you.
If,
Thank
you know, that's something that I want to add.
Well, I will add that to the motion that the lights as provided are approved with the understanding that they are centered one above each door, and that drawing should be updated for staff.
You accept that, Pete, that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, rolling on to application number 5. This is for 110 Buttles Avenue. All right, this application is for interior modification to the house, which includes retaining existing masonry opening, while replacing the rear door, the new custom size Pella Reserve traditional sliding door. The existing windows are to be removed and replaced with new shorter windows, and the existing counter opening to be above counter height and work with the kitchen with wood step framing info below. There's 2 options. Option F1 would have smooth wood panel and trim painted a complementary color to the surrounding brick, while option 2 would have a smooth hardy plank lap siding to match the existing garage, painted a complementary color to the surrounding brick, and installed new egress window at the basement window. The hardscaping and landscaping included as to remove the existing wood pergola, pavers, wood slat panels, stairs, and railings, and replace with a new patio drain with large format bluestone pavers, and install new condensing unit surrounded by the Graham Lindy boxwoods or similar plants, and install new cast-in-place concrete steps, which would have the split-face CMU and cast stone coping sweep walls to match the existing materials. These steps would also have new wrought iron railings installed over the cheek walls, and the existing wood fence and horn beams would remain, while there would be the installation of a new pergola against the garage, which would be painted to match the garage trim. Exterior modifications to the garage include removing that existing backlit sandblasted glass, wood slat panels, and framing, and restoring the south elevation to the original configuration with a hardy siding and trim to match the original. And install a new mini split heating cooling system. Alterations to the roof include removing existing rubber tiles, membrane roof, and vinyl cladding. Temporarily removing the cast stone copings and wrought iron guard railings to install new EPDM membrane roofing up the parapet wall over the top of the parapet, installing new flashing. The salvaged wrought iron guard railings would be reinstalled in the same openings at 36 inches above the roof deck. Modify the salvaged copings with a saw cut drip edge on both sides and reinstall at the south and west side to ensure the proper 1-inch minimum drip edge is on both sides. Each parapet wall between condo units would have a wider cast stone coping to match with the existing 1-inch overhang drip edge on each side, and to install new smooth hardy plank cementitious lap siding, rain screen wall finish on the parapet walls, and install new removable pedestal and I think I paid tropical hardwood roof paver system by Wasu or equal to be installed over the EPDM roof as a new deck structure. I've included the comments taken from the July 12th meeting, which was a conceptual review of this property. And it was also a little bit different of a design. The commissioners at the business meeting noted that their preference for the window openings was the paneling design. A darker color paint for the paneling was also noted as being preferred, but that would need to be discussed at the hearing. HBO staff typically recommends the window wells for interior alteration proposed. With the commission's support, other real alterations along the row house similar to this, and would they be supportive if additional variation was included as well? Staff does recommend the approval of the application as submitted with any and all clarifications to be submitted to HBO staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. Basis for staff recommendation is the City Code 3116.12, these standards for new construction.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's a lot.
Mouthful.
It's a lot with this. Sorry. Go ahead and say, no, it's okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay. Can you guys take your name, get you sworn in?
Daryl Rogers.
Morgan Bridges.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Perfect. So I turn it over to you guys to kind of walk us through.
Yeah, if you remember at our conceptual review, I think about 90% of the discussion was on the north elevation, the back elevation of the 20-year-old condo building. And it actually prompted us to kind of get back with our clients and talk about what we heard
We carefully listened to what you said, and we also really talked to them about making sure, are we gonna push forward with revising what we submitted, or, we had some pros and cons with some of the internal layout of what we presented, and we have pros and cons with what we've revised it to, but we actually decided to make a major change, which I think is a lot less aggressive in terms of change to the back of this building. And that is to just keep the doors opening where it's at and not do a central door opening, and simply modify the height of the windows where the kitchen will be. And we are asking for permission to change the swinging French doors to sliding French doors, but visually those will appear virtually identical. So really what we've boiled it down to is we've removed the shade structure also, which seemed to be somewhat challenging for some of the commissioners, and put it back to where it is now, which is at the garage. So the end of the story is a lot less change to the back elevation of this condo building. And it actually, from the owner's standpoint, they're probably getting a better kitchen layout out of it, which I know isn't part of your concerns, but it's kind of like, I think, a win-win situation in terms of the change we made. Do you want to focus on that part of the project first before we get on with?
No, so I'm writing them down, so I'm gonna say that's gonna be door and openings, back elevation. So go ahead and run to the next one and we'll.
Okay.
And then we'll circle back to.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yes, the patio hasn't really changed since the conceptual. We're still proposing the bluestone pavers. There is a small condensing unit that'll be screened by some boxwoods. Although moving the shade structure obviously changes the patio a bit, but I think having it as a backdrop at the garage is a better solution in terms of change to the principal structure. And I think it'll actually work better for them as a sitting area too. We have two options for the shade structure. One is all the way across with a pair of columns on each side. And the second option is a less wide version of it with only a single column on each side. So the owners don't really have a preference on which one we go with. There was an original discussion about running it all the way across, and we thought it looked very odd to only have one column with such a long span. So it's just something to talk about here, but we're not hung up on either direction. And then the south garage facade hasn't changed except for the shade structure now being up against it. We're still restoring that, getting rid of the wood slat and glass panels that were added by a previous owner, and restoring that back to the horizontal lap siding and trim, so it'll look like all the rest of the units and like it always should have looked. And then the last item is the roof and roof terrace. Again, we haven't really changed anything with that request. We're still putting a new fully adhered EPDM roof down and redoing the flashings and new cladding on the back side of the parapet and a new tropical hardwood paver system over the EPDM.
All right, so I'm gonna take it from the back. So the roof, so we got the roof, roof deck. We have the doors and openings at the rear of the existing property. The type of door, and then the reduction in height in the single existing window. And then we have the patio condition alongside of the shade structure. And it seems like it's more of the columns and supports in that kind of composition. And I think that's the items. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of discussion, yes.
Sir. Okay, so let's do let's do the deck and the roof first. That's okay? That seemed like that was less of our discussion last time. Any thoughts, team, in terms of the deck, and I should say the cladding that's on the backside of the deck, the removal of the coping, putting the coping back, that work, and then the e-pay paper system. Any thoughts?
I didn't have any issues with that.
Okay,
I'm good, yeah, no concerns.
all right. Would you just be able to clarify, since there was a couple of options, just, is it the horizontal siding option? It seemed like that is the one that rose to the top.
That is what we're proposing, yes.
Perfect, just, awesome, all right. So then let's go down to the patio, and address the patio, just a landscape, the kind of horizontal surface. Any thoughts or concerns with the patio? The location for the condenser, any of that geometry, materiality, nothing, perfect.
No, I'm good.
What about the shade structure, in terms of its positioning, the composition of the longer versus the shorter, 2 columns versus 4?
In elevation, I'm not opposed to the extra columns and the longer, but I think it's more about the view from adjacent, where obviously the longer is kind of sticking out to property lines. I think with that being said, I would maybe default to the single column approach. I could be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, I just felt the single, just given how much is happening in that little backyard, and that was just the thought. That was my first reaction. I just didn't know if that was the view that I was seeing it, and in terms of that or what, but that was my first thought too as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm fine either way. Okay, so.
Yep, I'm sure I think it too.
Sure, it's probably better.
Any concerns that we should talk through while we're on that item related to this option here that seems like it rose to the top, which is the 2 columns versus a 4?
We're open in either direction.
I just wanted to be,
Mhm.
just wanted to be sure, okay.
Yeah. If you asked me which one I would pick, it would be the one with 4 columns.
Okay. All right. And then the next would be the composition of the rear existing, and we have a couple components there. Sliding versus the French door. Is there any concern with the change? Given it's back to the existing opening now?
And those will be sliding French doors. So the stiles and rails
Will be the
will
same.
match the existing doors. It's just the function will be horizontal instead of swinging.
Very helpful, very helpful.
Mhm.
No concerns there. What about the shortening of the window, and the materiality, in terms of color? It seems like there was a couple options. It seemed like maybe the business meeting conversation, since I wasn't there, was more about the smooth paneled version in lieu of the horizontal siding version. But just thoughts on that for the hearing.
Yeah, my thought is, I get it, I get the need for it, so, I think the larger window looks better, but I completely understand not wanting to have a logo there. I like the panels.
I agree, I would go with the panels. As far as the infill, this is not a contributing building, right? It's a newer building. So that, how we're getting ourselves in any trouble here with infilling over
You
there?
can always get yourself.
Well, I'm asking, I'm looking at you.
This is, new construction is noted as for design, so you're thinking about the rhythm, the openings, how it relates into the overall, as well as some of the questions I posed that if we do shorten it here, are we okay elsewhere? And what are our reasonings for approving it too?
Okay,
Yeah, I have an issue with it, just given the wording and the guidelines that specifically say it's not appropriate being windows smaller or larger than the original. So shrinking the original window, obviously, in the guidelines is not appropriate.
Is that the guidelines for historic structures or for new buildings? Newer.
I don't think it specifies whether or not, are you talking, 40 years limits?
We've had this discussion before with some other projects, and the idea of if you keep the opening as it was originally and you infill it with something that's not permanent, there's always the chance that somebody could bring it back to that window. Versus if you filled it in with masonry and toothed the masonry in, there's a higher chance that nobody's ever gonna, undo that one. So
Yeah, I would have a different feeling if this were historic,
yeah,
very much so.
And this is a 2004 building.
It is.
Rob, you feel a little bit better now?
Yeah, I do. I don't know that the guidelines specify the difference on windows for being contributing versus non-contributing, that being 40 years.
All right. And Kimberly, that's something that you felt, there, you feeling okay related to that?
So I'm almost always going to suggest to all the windows, but this is a new build, so I'm going to defer to
Correct.
commission.
You got it. Okay, awesome. All right, is that all the components then? So it seems like the windows were okay, it seems like this is more about the new building, the rhythm is still there. It's not a historic structure. Maybe there's some thoughts about just making sure in the motion we talk about that a little bit. It seems like that's the biggest item to clarify. And then the one option about the columns. I seems like that's the option two,
Just go with the 2 columns
Yeah.
instead of 4.
and then horizontal siding on the deck. I think that's, yeah, and then clarifying that the panel approach is that's the option in lieu of the horizontal siding for the window infill.
We would propose that that horizontal siding on the back of the parapet be the color that complements the brick, which is basically what we're showing in that infill on the first floor window. So you're using that same color. And as you can see, the back side of the parapet is not, I mean, from the rear, you can see it if you're on the property.
Right.
But we don't want that, we don't want to call attention to that.
That's right. That's perfect. All right, any other clarifications? All right, is there a motion team? Sorry.
Looking at you, Tim.
I get yelled at when I do all.
No one's yelling at you for this one.
Wait, yeah, that's not my, I was just asking for clarification because I was.
Okay, can we, maybe, does it help us to break it out, just to talk through without, can we talk it through that way? And do one motion in the end?
Yeah,
But it's
so
to
who
help
wants
us-
to
to
talk
help us
about the
motion.
motion?
That's
Yeah,
correct. That's,
Yeah, and then somebody can go, yeah, just what we all said.
that's correct.
That's-
All right, so let's do it that way. So let's take the roof deck components first. So that's the masonry work.
Yep.
That's the horizontal siding approach, it being painted out. That's on the back side of the parapet as cladding.
Yep.
With the E-Pay paver.
Yep.
And the masonry work associated, in the sketches. So that's the kind of number one item.
Correct.
There was no changes. I think the colors will be painted out to match the existing brick. So it goes away, blend.
Complementary,
Complimentary.
yes,
Thanks.
since it's a blend, yeah.
And I'm just going to ask for whatever paint chip or color swatch, just on the off chance that later on the office gets asked for, hey, what was that painted? We want to match it. That way we have it on
We
file.
can get that too.
Thank you.
That color will be clarified and offered to staff for approval. Number two, let's just kind of run to, let's say the patio. So layout of the patio. And the hardscape, no changes as submitted. The shade structure on the garage, the 2-column option, which and then repair back in kind, or repair back, or I should say the repairs of taking off all the cladding and getting it back to the existing structure, installing the horizontal siding, and get it back to what it was originally. That's all.
Oh, good.
All good. Okay. Paint and such to match existing, etc. Number three, which was the kind of the back elevation, we're gonna say the door. So we have a sliding door that will be, I'm gonna say, kind of, its operation will change. Existing opening, it will be, I'm sorry, the French door will be changed to a sliding door. It's, I guess the location of it is the same and the look will be the same, given the manufacturer's they proposed. The existing opening, the window would be shortened. And that will be replaced, or the infill would be the smooth panel approach. And that color would be painted out to match or complementary to the existing brick. I think
Stairs or window well, anything you want to add?
I forgot what the stairs are, thank you. So then we do have the stairs, and Reed, can you just help me with the stairs and window?
Yeah, so the stairs are being replaced with the precast stairs, I believe. They're not.
Cast in place.
Cast in place, okay. And then the window well as well is gonna be replaced with just
The stairs also have split face cheek walls that'll match the existing foundation and a coping that's cast stone that'll match the existing water.
casting. Yeah.
Much nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, much nicer, and getting rid of the existing cladded wood that was not appropriate.
Yes. Okay, and the modernist stair.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that?
I
Kimberly,
think also to note that the window modification dialogue is recognition of it being a new build, rear facing modification that is acceptable.
Very helpful. Are we missing anything, team?
I don't believe so. When I put the motion together, I'll probably compare this to what the wording is and make any changes through there, highlight any additional items they might need to get with a nice underline and get it squared away. What I might, if I get really confused, which I've got the recording, so hopefully that won't be it, I might send the motion out to somebody, but so just in case I may have missed something.
Okay. You feel pretty good on where we're headed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for taking all of our feedback, by the way.
No, for sure.
It's been very,
It ended up working out really well.
For sure. Great dialogue. All right, is there a second?
second. That's easy. Don't need that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and just to clarify, that was Commissioner Skinner that made technically. made
Yes,
motion?
That is good. Yeah.
Yes, yes, you
You did.
The credit.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, for sure. That's why I had to write these things down. There's so many things.
We can yell at you later saying you're doing too many of them.
Is it just you or is it the collective group? All right, all joking aside, we are going to move on to number 6, which is our last application of 345 West Third Avenue. This is our only conceptual one, so we're gonna have to remember not to vote on it. This is to replace the existing storefront window on the north elevation with the new wood glass storefront within the existing openings. Install 2 new masonry storefront openings on the west elevation and install a new patio space on Harrison Avenue. And the rear south elevation of the building, the rear patio would be covered, although I think it's partially covered, the side one's going to be covered. And install new building mounted awnings with seasonal enclosures. The commissioners at the business meeting requested contextual photos of the area, as well as full elevation views of the north and west elevations. A site plan, including adjacent properties, was also requested. The commissioners wanted to see the broader picture of the area and how the proposed patio may potentially affect neighbors. Commissioners requested a rendered view of how the enclosed patio would look in winter. They also wanted to know if the noise barriers would be part of the design for the rear patio as it abuts a residential area. It was asked if there was enough space on the west elevation for a patio. The applicant has submitted updated materials, which include the items that the commissioners requested. HBO staff has noted that the existing entry would be modified as well. The alteration includes a new chandelier and sconces. Commissioners should discuss if the proposed lighting is appropriate and complements the building and architecture, and that per the short North design guidelines on patios and lighting. Based on guidelines and code, HPO staff does not find them appropriate. The property is located at the western edge of Victorian Village and within a residential area. The commission should discuss if allowing sidewalk seating on the western sidewalk is appropriate. HPO staff does not support the addition of non-historic openings on a building per city code 3116.11, these standards for alteration. The commission should also discuss if the covered rear patio is appropriate, especially so close to residences, as well as on that side. And I propose the question, would additional noise cancellation measures be appropriate? The commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future meeting. Basis for staff recommendations, City Code 3116.11, these standards for alteration, as well as Short North design guidelines regarding commercial patios and outdoor dining. and the short north design guidelines on lighting.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's a lot there. So, can you state your names and get you sworn in?
Kevin Likens.
Matt Toddy?
Thank you. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'll turn it over to you guys. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, Kimberly did a great job of explaining the scope. I think we're here for a conceptual review, get some feedback from you all about the proposed updates to what is currently Harrison's on Third structure at the corner of Harrison and Third Avenue. The scope includes, well, let me talk about what the building is currently. There currently faces Third Avenue with a series of existing openings and doors that open to the north with a corner entry at the northwest corner. And the Harrison Avenue side, which is the side of the building, is largely opaque. It's a brick monolith. There do appear to have been openings in that wall at some time in the past. However, it is just a solid wall now. And then the back area where we are proposing a patio is currently just a gravel lot. It's not striped. It's not technically parked in any formal capacity. It's just a gravel lot. So what we're proposing is to really kind of wholesale update the structure, including new glazing and cafe window openings on the north facade. So replacing the existing glass within the existing masonry openings, and then carrying that language around to the Harrison Avenue side to create very similar set of openings to the west to really enhance the pedestrian experience as you turn the corner into Harrison. Also proposed is a patio off the back that is partially covered with an outdoor bar that is under the covered portion. And then taking up some of that gravel area to be some outdoor dining and patio space. That is proposed to be surrounded by planters. And then along the west, we've included a sidewalk lease plan because we are proposing a row of seating and a railing barrier there within the right of way along Harrison Avenue. We're proposing a slight change to the corner entry from a 45-degree corner to a 90-degree to create a little bit more space as you enter from the street. And then, in large part, the part of the proposal is to renovate the restaurant interior as well, but that's obviously beyond your scope. But just there's mentioning that it'll be a new restaurant tenant that would occupy the space. So with that,
One thing just to follow up on that back patio, the portion that we're talking about that is currently paved in the rear, that was always used as a patio in the past. We're just talking about extending out into the gravel portion.
yeah, there is an existing door off the south as well of that patio that we would maintain as a part of accessing that patio space. So.
Are you talking about where the brick and hedge line are?
Yes.
Back-
Yeah, there's an existing brick planter, like knee wall that kind of surrounds it.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that. I didn't know there was actually patios.
Yeah, there it is.
The current guy's not busy enough to use
Okay.
that, but in the past, that's always been a
Patio.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else to add? Turn over to Colin.
Welcome any questions, comments.
So real quick, just for the record, the commissioners have received 3 different written comments from people. I just wanted to note those were sent out and received by the commissioners.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was-
because one's like conferred with Jeff's letter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
That's correct. All right, so I'm just gonna try to break this down a little bit. Well, let's just talk about just maybe facade. Can we just talk about facade in general? So a couple questions are, you have, the west openings. Let's more talk about composition first before we talk about specifics. So composition, so west, the existing north elevation, that won't change. There will be a change at the corner. And then at the west elevation, new openings. So can we just talk about that idea? And thoughts related to that?
With the west,
Any,
my concern with that is that you're turning onto a residential street. And you're gonna have a fair amount of noise generated by those tables on the side, so that would be my concern with the west end with the patio. I think High Street or Third's a little different, so the north, you already have tables on there, but that's a, busy commercial street for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I understand those concerns and they can't be ignored. I do appreciate the activation of that facade. I mean, this is a corner commercial site, so I do applaud kind of keeping, some activity happening, but we can't ignore the concerns that are being expressed by the community on just making sure that noise is not an issue. Not really facade related, but, just based on renderings, do you guys anticipate any right of way streetscape improvements as part of this sidewalks? And looks like it's not in great shape and some.
Trees are terrible.
Some bad, it's tough condition because you got overhead lines on, I think, on both streets. That's not an easy condition, but would that be part of the anticipated improvements with the property?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can I jump in?
Yeah.
Just to respond to those two comments. I think,
Totally.
one of the things that we looked at, because I think we heard that very clear, especially with the comments that were provided from the neighborhood, is the comparison to what was formerly Italian Market across High Street on the Italian Village side, which is a very similar commercial corner structure with a corner entry that had cafe windows put into what were previously opaque walls on both sides. And the patio was added to the residential side, Third Avenue. And it was, as a nearby resident, noise was never an issue for me as an experience, but it did really enhance that corner and the way that you engaged the fabric in that area. So I just want to offer that as a something to think about.
Good comparison.
Thank you.
I'd say follow up on that is that it is only one table deep. So you're really not gonna have a lot of, congregating out on that patio. It's really just for dining.
And so just from a glazing perspective, the cafe, optical windows are only being proposed right now on the north elevation and not on the west or on the.
We're proposing them on both.
I just wanted to be sure.
They are proposed as table height cafe, so it wouldn't be the full like walkout.
And the fenestrations and things like that would stay the same, or fenestrations would have to alter.
The idea is to match the existing fenestration.
All right, can we talk just about maybe just kind of extent of patio? I mean, just.
Before we move on to patio, the door.
Go ahead, I'm
in
sorry.
the corner.
Yeah, corner, thank you.
I think the kind of diagonal door thing is on this particular type of location is kind of important for some of that historic feel. So I'm not really keen on changing that to be perpendicular.
I agree, and the light is not, I agree with I think it was the steps.
Yeah, the chandelier is appropriate, yeah.
Anything wrong? No, okay, you're shaking your head too.
I would be interested, Kimberly, if there's any historic pictures of this, because that front door doesn't look right as it is.
Always.
It looks a little off.
There's a glass.
The glass block with the infill. I'd be curious to know what this looked like. And whether things could be brought to make it look a little bit more historically appropriate.
I would agree that something closer to what exists today seems better, but not to say that it's exactly that.
Right.
I think that needs more exploration.
Yeah, what's there is certainly it's not great. Maybe the idea could be preserved.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If we can find other precedent examples of those kind of conditions to compare.
Perfect. Very helpful. I'm just try to jump to just kind of thinking about maybe instead of patio, let's kind of think about awnings. Is there any, kind of thought about, the preservation of the awnings and that kind of approach that we currently have, and then maybe as it relates to what's being proposed or shown in the renderings, more horizontal. Is there any concerns or thoughts related to that we can offer?
Yeah, I actually like the horizontal better than what's there now. Better than the awnings that are there now.
I agree.
Just being able to open that face up and just, maintain the fenestrations and being able to see that activation in there.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna remind commissioners that we don't like things with wayside judgments and code and guidelines.
Okay, understandable. So that one is gonna be something that we're gonna have to.
We might have to further discuss this staff
sure.
with a bit of a deeper dive to help focus the conversation.
I guess why I do like it honestly is I think it has kind of a historic look to it, whereas awnings to me always look like something tacked onto a building.
The fabric ones?
Yeah,
I believe the short North design guidelines outline just for fabric awnings.
yeah, because they're, yeah.
Which can be historically appropriate, but not quite in this setup.
Yeah.
Like what was there, but not, I don't think.
So it sounds like we're gonna need some historic photos, which
Yeah,
perhaps
that's probably.
we can both work on
Yeah.
for whenever the next review is.
If we can, I think it'd be helpful to understand a little bit more what the concerns are with what's proposed. Because I think what I'm hearing is like, we're bringing more daylight in, and we're seeing more glass. But there's also concerns. I would like, before we, maybe.
I'd like to see what's there historically, because that, informs my direction of, how kind of guide the commission with what might be appropriate, because there's been many designs I have liked, it's just, they haven't all been up to the code and guidelines.
Understand. And I think that's the point, is we can like the way it looks, but if it doesn't meet the.
Right.
Yeah.
Into guidelines.
So it may be something as just kind of, if that's the spirit of being able to open up, is there an appropriate awning
Mhm.
that provides that versus what's installed in terms of its geometry now? Okay.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing. I think on the Shore North design guidelines, right, the boundary map sets kind of where those apply. So we just want to, before we start looking too hard at those, just know that's kind of a companion text.
Yeah, so
Yes.
typically when we review commercial buildings, I'll reference the short North design guidelines because the Victorian Village guidelines are very.
Yeah, very thin, yeah.
Yes, so as long as we're all okay, kind of entertaining what the short North design guidelines are, caveat that this is not in the short North. So there might be some additional discussion that goes into it or additional things that we consider.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that, because, because I went through that whole exercise myself, but I think it's certainly helpful for the applicant to be mindful of those, even though, they're not directly applicable, so it's right.
Sure.
Because the Victorian Village guidelines are very shallow on that point, so is the code.
For that matter, I don't know if this applies to I think where some of the concerns are gonna be of the west facing, it's facing outside of also outside of the boundary. I don't know if that means anything or not.
So there's still residences.
Yeah, I know,
So it's,
but are we, their guidelines, is that,
so what we're looking at is within
yeah,
Victorian Village, so it's still being respectful of, the surrounding area, because that's context. But, we don't necessarily, it doesn't quite extend that far, because we're not bringing the opposite side of the street in, if that makes sense.
Could I, just to add to that point, I think it's worth noting that the residential fabric of Harrison Avenue is interesting at this location because the west side of Harrison faces Harrison, but the east side actually orients towards Second. So behind this is a garage. You only have a few houses across the street. You don't have houses adjacent also, I think is maybe worth understanding.
Yeah.
There's a site plan in here, I think it shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just gonna follow up with your site plan, it shows how everything's oriented.
Very helpful. So, anything else left on facade or just kind of, composition that would help the applicant that we haven't touched on? I know that there's some thoughts. Well, maybe do we touch on this kind of enclosure, condition, as well? The kind of patio enclosure, the kind of 4-season condition. Proposed final drops.
I was gonna say, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not allowed to say that.
You can say it if you can back it up by code and guidelines.
I probably could, but I have to check those out. I know what you, obviously I know what you're trying to do. You want it to be usable year round. Just the look of it to me is kind of too modern for the area. So, and kind of, I don't know. I have to think about that. I think I have to think about my word, but I definitely know understanding for it.
Yeah, and just for my clarification with those panels, are those gonna be removable or are those just roll up?
I think both are an option.
Okay.
And I'll speak to my opinion on that, is I think they need to be removable, because too many people, Saucy Brewworks, I know it's not in the district, but it's just not a good look when you have something hanging down a foot. It feels like a tent, and I think that's a miss. So I think that, when it's inclement weather, you should be able to put them up. When it's not, they come down.
Okay.
Xenos, I think that's the same. Well, there's go.
Saucy's roll, Xenos
Xenos go away.
they create like a Minecraft type,
Oh, yes, they did.
That's an interesting analogy.
that's big.
All right. And then let's talk about just the kind of patio extents and, just some of those concerns related to that or just opportunities.
Yeah, and this is another item that's come up recently as well in some other locations and similar concerns of adjacent to residents and potential for noise. And so we're balancing that, appreciating getting people, creating that outdoor environment. I very much appreciate, but making sure we're being mindful of what's adjacent. I think this condition, as opposed to some of the others we've looked at recently with the alley there, with the garages, that it's maybe a little bit different in terms of that density of residential that we've had in some other cases. So I think it's possible. We just have to be really careful about what that edge is and how we're taking efforts to help screen and buffer noise. And so that might be, landscape treatment, fencing treatment, all of the above to make sure that we're being responsible with that effort.
What is the rear of the patio there? What is? It's right here.
So those are proposed to be planters with landscaping that could have some height, I think the idea is to create a little bit of intimacy in there, so
Okay.
it's above seated height that we're screening at least,
Yeah.
but.
And, the soft material, if it's something that can absorb versus just, letting noise bounce around, I think is the other piece to this that we should consider, which it looks like is being considered.
It's uncovered, right?
Correct. The south of the existing building structure would be uncovered.
Okay.
Yeah, you can kind of see it in the bottom right there. Is the extent of the canopy.
Yeah, because lighting is gonna be another hot button issue on this. I think we had that come up on the last.
Yes, please.
Kind of that light pollution in addition to the noise pollution that comes from.
Agree.
Do you have a picture of that facade that going down to the neighbors, just so we can? Close.
Yeah, that top right is kind of foreshortened a little too far, I guess, isn't it?
I could go for page 8. Bottom left, page 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the corner looking to the south.
Get one more sheet, maybe, is that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where they are. Yeah, go back one from where you were.
Yeah.
Back one more.
Yeah.
I have another page.
Yeah, I have another page.
There's new and old materials.
Okay.
So,
It's A5.1.
Yeah.
Is the
so
sheet.
they're all on the same thing, but if you pull up the little, the sheets on the side. I'm going to go behind you, one second. So if you pull up this real quick, this might have this, but. I think we're towards the end, so this is the old material, so if you scroll up to the top. So this is all me thinking mosaic in my mind.
That sounds great.
You know, I need to do a little bit more explanation. If we go one more down to the PDF page 8, we've got some additional photos. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. So bottom left image was kind of the conditions.
Right. Yeah, so that bottom right image, you can kind of see the garage across the alley there, which would be opposite the back of the patio.
So fortunately, yeah, we're all garages over there, and then you have that buffer until you get to a residence that faces Second Avenue.
Yeah. That's understandable. And I know that, you know, even on some of the buildings that I think there are some properties that we're looking at proposing, you know, some back activated patios. And I think the noise, you know, how are we treating that? You know, what are the sensitivities there? Lighting, what are the sensitivities there? You know, even though that there may be, I'm going to say maybe an ancillary kind of structure between, you know, the two, it's just trying to make sure that we're just being sensitive. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I think that's probably going to be
that's a concern.
that's going to be your biggest, as you probably saw in it, you know, in some of the comments already from the neighborhood. That's probably going to be, you know, how do we solve that is the question, you know? And then at the same time is how much is too much? Like what's really needed? You know, think about that, you know, it's like right now, you know, there's a lot of, I'm going to say activation, you know, on the north, the activation that kind of turns the corner to the west, and then we do stretch. So we're kind of, you know, really trying to take up activation throughout the entire site. Is there a balance, you know, that helps us solve these things, you know, from a programming perspective, you know, as well. I mean, so all a great project from that perspective is just trying to figure out what is that balance to be able to sensitively kind of integrate, you know, within the context. So, yeah. At least that's just what I'm reading. So,
Yeah, and I think of the back patio too, I mean, present uses obviously come into consideration, right? If it's gonna be a restaurant that's better than a bar from a noise and light perspective, but also if we approve a patio and 2 years later, a new tenant comes in and it's a bar, then, you know, that's a problem. So making sure those, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but sort of the measures that are taken to address those light and noise pollution, affecting those contributing properties next door is really taken into account. Let me say, again, not worst case scenario, but a change of use.
makes sense.
From what you specifically intend to do.
Makes sense. Yeah, just not thinking ahead, just thinking.
Yeah.
Understand.
Well, and from your side as well, right? I mean, you've got dumpsters on one side of that area and you've got an alley going the other way, and who wants to sit back there potentially, and how you want to screen that from people using patio as well. So.
Yeah, my gut, and this is for you guys to continue to explore, is that that back patio probably needs a bit more buffer, you know, just in width. To be successful, meet these goals, but obviously you're losing seating when you do that. So just something to consider as you kind of keep advancing.
Any other, I mean, this us breaking that down, offering dialogue on those items, is that positive? Do you feel like you've gotten what you think you need to come back or continue to advance this, or like how can we help? I guess.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something about lighting as well. I think on was it sconce lighting that were presented? Is that a
Kimberly and
comment earlier?
Sconce, the sconces were not appropriate according to staff.
Or the chandelier.
Mainly the chandelier. I
Okay.
was gonna say, are the sconces supposed to be those globe lights?
Yeah, between the bays.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on the west side.
I see. Okay.
I actually,
more
well,
dialing of the lighting itself. Gotcha.
yeah, they're in between each bay of storefront on the masonry piers.
Oh, yeah, I see.
I think, maybe to answer your question, Patrick, on yours, it might be good to have a little bit more conversation if it's something that we can handle offline about the awnings and what is or is not appropriate.
Okay.
I think that is a gray area right now in terms of, yeah, I think we'll be looking for maybe a vote even next time we come around. So it'd be helpful to be able to pin as much down as possible. Is there anything else that
No, I mean, that, we definitely want to keep it moving and, you know, the hope is that when the current tenant, when the lease expires, that we can hit the ground running.
Understandable.
Get rid of the Papa Shot and put it else for 25 years.
Is that gonna be for sale or?
House.
I just, remind you of, our ethics as.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was offering to pay fair market value for it.
I don't want to have to deal with HRM signatures.
I retract my current statement. They were inappropriate.
All in good fun.
So the awning, I don't know if we're able to give a great answer right now. I think we need more information. We need to do some digging on any historical information we can find. Pull in the short north guidelines and kind of scrutinize that and those examples of what's acceptable. Any kind of examples you guys can find to help us compare and contrast, I think is good. I think we recognize that what's there today isn't great, but that style of awning does have some historical, accuracy. So that's where we have to balance the kind of contributing feature appropriateness versus just what feels right.
And one last comment on the corner door. If we can't find any historical photos, see what that would have been, do you have some guidance on direction on that?
And there again, if you can't find that example, bring in those contextual precedent examples that help to share, that fuel that ammo of other things that have been done that we can draw comparisons to.
Okay.
And then Kimberly, can you offer maybe some like properties or something like that, images, like, just if there's, I don't know, if something comes to mind
I
in terms of
think
the
that's fine, but
you know,
since you two might be in the neighborhood more, if you could supply any, that would be
High
appreciated.
Street's gonna be the easiest place.
Yeah,
Sure.
yes, it's going to be commercial
Yeah.
properties that,
And I assume the examples within Victorian Village?
yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense. But you are willing to share anything that you have, old photographs of this particular building with it?
Yes.
Perfect.
I'm not sure how old the photographs I have, but I'll look in the file and
Awesome.
include what I can.
Okay.
Be great.
Anything else? All right. Well, thanks, guys. We
Yeah,
truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Feedback.
Pleasure.
Okay, so the whole business item we heard earlier as a public forum. So I don't have any additional new business or old business.
Is there a motion, anything else before that we need to talk about? Okay.
Motion
Is it
to
motion?
adjourn.
For a second?
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let us get everything off here. Here, if you want, just hit the X.
It'll just stop it.
Yeah, it should, because if you hit that and then